For 40 years, computer memory ran on one of the most reliable cycles in technology. It was a cheap, predictable commodity. This chart tracks that rhythm. Shortages pushed prices into sharp peaks, creating a massive glut that sent prices crashing into valleys. Buyers relied on this cycle. If RAM was expensive today, wait out the market for the inevitable price collapse. Micron, one of the world's largest memory producers, has just walked away from that open market model in favor of a system of rigid, prepaid contracts. When the supply of a necessary component stops behaving like a commodity, it creates a systemic crisis for any company relying on cheap hardware to build their products. This bar chart shows the scale of the current shift. While memory suppliers traditionally operated on thin margins, Micron's recent quarter shows a massive spike to an 84.9%. While the quarterly profits are significant, the deeper change lies in 16 binding, long-term contracts Micron has now secured to make these margins permanent. These agreements lock up a massive portion of Micron's total output through the year 2030, guaranteeing the company a minimum of $100 billion in revenue. To secure that capacity, customers are paying $22 billion upfront in cash deposits and letters of credit directly to the supplier. Memory has been turned into critical strategic infrastructure. Desperate tech giants are now paying billions just to hoard supply years in advance. The driver for this market panic is the demand for AI accelerators and the specific high-bandwidth memory required to power them. Hyperscalers are operating under the fear of being starved of the chips they need to store and process their massive AI datasets. These strategic customer agreements function as a massive wager. In exchange for committing to these volumes, the buyers get a strict price ceiling. As this graph illustrates, the ceiling acts as insurance. It protects the buyers from prices spiraling to catastrophic levels during the current AI shortage. Securing a capped price in a market defined by scarcity feels like a victory to these companies, justifying their decision to sign away their future leverage. The catch is that these contracts are strictly take or pay. Buyers are legally obligated to purchase the agreed volume or pay the penalty regardless of actual need. These deals set a price floor, guaranteeing Micron a minimum margin higher than any peak in previous booms. The structural change is evident in the $22 billion in customer deposits sitting on Micron's balance sheet. Traditionally, the manufacturer took on the financial risk to build these factories. Now the buyers are pre-funding the construction themselves. Micron has successfully moved its own financial risk onto its customers, inverting the traditional power dynamic of the hardware supply chain. Memory production has become a quiet geopolitical choke point, controlled almost entirely by a small group of companies in the US and Korea. The keys to this bottleneck are held by a tight oligopoly: Micron, Samsung, and SK Hynix. For everyone outside of these 16 VIP contracts, the damage is severe. With a third of the market's NAND and 20% of its DRAM locked away, the industry has lost its flexibility. For PC builders and enterprise server operators, the waiting period for cheap RAM has been suspended. Removing that much supply from the open market eliminates the pricing flexibility that traditionally led to retail discounts, leaving consumer hardware costs vulnerable to the shortage. These contracts represent a $100 billion insurance policy against the AI bubble bursting. If AI demand remains high through 2030, paying upfront for scarce supply will look like a visionary move by the hyperscalers. But if that demand cools by 2028, these companies will be legally chained to $100 billion of hyper-expensive memory they no longer need. A $100 billion floor is only as solid as a counterparty's ability to honor it. That enforceability will face its real test during the next demand collapse. Micron hasn't abolished the boom-bust cycle. They've signed a $100 billion legal obligation that will be tested the moment AI demand slows.